Okay, Muitsumatsu doing... Either I'm going to upload this semantic rant or I'll wait until I have a second one to complement this one, but this one's doing 2 words as well as the other one's going to do 2 words, but this one is basically focused on one term and an alternative way of saying it. The main term is the term atheism, which, yeah, this one has at least 2 definitions, one of which can go into the alternative word, but then again we have at least 2 particular ideas associated with it. One of them is that, associations of atheists with other systems that have led to bad things, but of course things like communism, etc., eugenics, social Darwinism, any of those things. The difficulty here and the problem is that, well, they're making an association with one thing with another, which doesn't necessarily follow. And you can completely lack a belief in God or assert there is no God and it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you're going to be a communist or that you want to kill people that you think are inferior to you and stuff like that. It certainly doesn't fall to that. But basically that's a whole very negative association with atheists, which makes them, supposedly according to a Gallup poll, the least trusted minority in the U.S. So people trust homosexuals, Mormons, and old politicians more than they trust atheists to be like members of politics. So it doesn't matter if you're old or gay or Mormon, they'll trust you. Well, they'll trust you more anyway. They won't trust you if you say you're an atheist. Albeit, this gets into the nuanced. I'm not sure of the name of the guy that actually considers himself a non-theist, but that will be the next term in this semantic rant. But the other meaning of atheist goes to talking about distinctions of atheists. Do we have an atheist that asserts that there's no God or gods, or do we have an atheist who simply lacks the belief in this God or gods? So I keep switching those up. But that gets into the distinction of terms that tends to be made. Albeit it seems like there are almost parties of atheists that the majority seem to prefer that we not use the alternative term non-theist. They simply prefer to distinguish between a strong atheist / hard atheist, which, an atheist that makes this assertion, metaphysical assertion, which can be problematic logically, but we don't need to get into that. And then there's the weak / soft atheist that simply lacks the belief and doesn't make particular assertions, which could be said that they are kind of agnostic about it, but we'll get into that in the next semantic rant about agnostic, etc. But then we have this alternative term, non-theism, coined by Michael Shermer, who is an editor of Skeptic magazine, I believe. But he coined this to make the distinction, it seems, between the nuances of negation. With A in the negative, it seems to imply, a more combative stance, perhaps. At least he argues. But then non seems to imply much less combative stance, and a stance that just simply says, well, we just simply aren't like you. We're like, to bring up a term like in a similar term, for example, we have like a term like anarchy, which implies against rule in general. It tends to anyway. But then it could just mean without rule, like you just have mob mentality. Same thing could apply to atheists. We could interpret it that you're simply being without God, or you're making a direct assertion against God belief, you could say. Now with non-theist, to find an equivalent term is difficult to show what the nuance of this negation of non is. Like non-sexual is an example. You simply have no sex drive. I guess that might be a decent example. It simply means you completely lack it. Although then there's the whole term, then there's the most people use the term asexual. It simply means you, it doesn't mean you don't have sex, so to speak, but you don't reproduce, which gets into a whole other thing. In relation to God belief, of course, we're going to say that simply saying atheist or non-theist, a lot of atheists are going to argue that it's a stupid distinction because of the fact that they essentially can mean the same thing in the most basic manner of stating what your worldview is. That means and that is your worldview, that you lack a God belief. Now, of course, a distinction can be made. Generally, the majority of atheists they're not going to argue with that there can be a distinction between assertion of belief in something and then the assertion of knowledge about something, which is the distinction between atheist and agnostic. But we'll get into that in the next Semantic Rant, and this is nearing 6 minutes. But there you go. The main bulk of this was atheist, negative associations with it, and then letting the viewers on my YouTube channel see that, there can be different kinds of atheists, so to speak. And that, it doesn't mean, there's also the argument that you shouldn't use this necessary extra term. You should just make a clarification of weak and strong, or soft and hard. Anyway, this is the end of it. Trying to keep this under 6 minutes. See you later.